Hey y'all, David here. I know you came for fears, but did you know you can also get fierce? That's right, our friends with the Distant Echoes Star Wars podcast are hosting a Star Wars themed drag show benefiting the Richmond local charity He, She, Ze, We, which advocates for gender inclusivity. You can attend the drag show in person or through live stream, and tickets are available now. There's a link in the episode description. So grab yours today, and may the fierce be with you.
Welcome to Fear Coded, a podcast where we talk about media from the horror genre and take a queer reading of a single book, video game, film, podcast, or TV show to explore just how queer horror can be. We have collected an old priest and a young priest and commanded you, the listener, to let the power of queer podcasting compel you, because all month long we will be celebrating Excommunic-April and looking at Catholic and religious horror and how this subgenre gives us characters who are besieged by demonic forces while teetering on the question of their beliefs. We're talking Latin, chic habits, and the power of the crucifix all month long. And to kick it off, we are starting with the 2022 video game compilation, Faith the Unholy Trinity, developed by Airdorf Games and published by New Blood Interactive. I'm Marilee.
Back off, Bendejo. I've got a shotgun. It's David.
That just totally threw me off. Now I wish I had a quote from the game too, but anyway, I'm Tyler.
And before the pixelated beastie crabs walk their way at us at a frankly alarming pace, I want to check in and say hello with my co-hosts and see how things are going for them, because in a landscape of horrors that our real world has to offer, what's making y'all feel scared and what is making you feel prepared?
Gang, I'm gonna get us started. I'm back in Spain. I think that I misremembered when I would be back in Spain. So 2 episodes ago, I claimed that I was back. I was not. That was a lie. But I am back now, and I'm here to tell you that I am prepared. And let me tell you why I am prepared. Because this week, well, it's actually been happening for a couple weeks now, but this week there is a celebration on Gran Canaria, which is one of the little islands off of the Cape of Africa that belong is doing a lot of work here to Spain, in the same way that Hawaii belongs to the United States, in that there were indigenous people and colonists showed up. Anyway, they are hosting a giant bear festival, and I am prepared because I am not going to it, but my husband is, which leaves me alone, blissfully alone, with no one here to judge me, with nothing but rotisserie chickens that I can eat like a wild animal over the sink. I am living and dreaming and having my absolute best life all week long.
Incredible. I'm thrilled for you.
Listeners, I wish podcasting was a visual medium, because the hand motions that David just did to express his joy are
I'm blessed.
Wonderful.
Just truly and honestly blessed by God themselves. Here's the deal. I had the opportunity. I could go with. I could certainly have gone with. And now that I have, and we met a lot of people who are going to this when we traveled back to from the United States. When we were in the Gatwick airport of London, there was a whole sea of what I would call extremely David coded guys who were getting on a plane to Gran Canaria, and I was like, damn, I wish I was on that plane. But I'm happy to have a little bit of downtime where I can recover and get sort of back into the swing of things, maybe play some video games that aren't for a podcast, and just, have a super good alone time to recharge my batteries. I will be ready for him to be home because he'll be gone for 7 days.
Whoa.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
But hey, that's also a lot of rotisserie chickens that you can eat like a caveman, and I love that for you.
So many. I might even make stock and make soup out of their bones, just to,
fully conquer them and take the marrow and absorb their power.
Yeah, I will be part chicken the next time we speak.
Bagok.
Oh my gosh. Well, with that, Tyler, how are you feeling? Scared or prepared?
I am feeling prepared.
Tell me why.
Tell me why. Okay, so listeners, between episodes, I had the distinct privilege of getting to meet David in person in the meat space that is reality.
Yeah. I mean, technically we're in the sushi space, but it still counts.
Well, we ate a lot of Korean barbecue, so there was quite a lot of meat.
We did eat a lot of meat.
Under that there was an air vent, and we had to get moved at one point because it was blowing directly on top of us, and that was
too cold, Marilee. It was too cold, Marilee. We were gonna freeze to death.
We were.
Tyler and I.
Horrendous.
But it was so wonderful to get to meet David. He's as wonderful and pleasant and attractive in person as he is online.
Thank you.
Yeah. I work with the most beautiful people on this podcast.
Really? I regret Marilee couldn't be there, but of course you were at a wedding. So.
Yeah, no, I was
in a different state.
Busy.
Literally could not have even made that happen if we had wanted to. But it was so much fun to see and hang out with each other. It was fun to also have barbecue and sushi. And I don't feel like we ate too much at an all-you-can-eat place.
Yeah, I felt good afterwards.
I love that for you. That never happens.
I know. I was worried.
Me too. We also saw cats, and it was like the one chilly day left in Florida until, I don't know, November.
I would like to specify for the listener audience, in case you had the exact reaction that I did when Tyler said that, and I had the immediate revulsion and horror of, oh my god, the musical? Why? No, they meant like real life cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never force David to know what a jellicle cat is.
Oh my god. Okay, well, thinking that I haven't seen cats. Ouch.
Well, I haven't, so I don't know.
Really? We can cover it for the podcast. There's a movie. It's terrifying that it exists.
I will only watch it in the original, as it's intended, unfinished CGI cut. So.
Wow. Just WOW right there, Marilee.
I'm just saying, they patched it in the movie theaters, and I think that is heretical and a crime before God. So
there we go. Well, this is the month to list crimes before God, and the film Cats qualifies at every level.
We're gonna have to reschedule. We gotta figure out how to put cats in there.
The power of Christ truly cannot compel you.
No. Again, I've made my position very clear. I will never watch it until I can see that version of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Marilee, tell us, how are you feeling? Scared or prepared?
Guys, I gotta tell ya.
Tell us.
We got a triple whammy! Because I'm also prepared.
It's April. Ugh. Just can't get enough.
Yes, here's the thing. It's a really scary time. There's a lot of stuff happening. And I've had a really stressful month. Like last month, there was a lot of stuff going on. I got sick. It was like a whole thing. We talked about this way early in the podcast, where sometimes when things get too much, I kind of like focus in. And you know what, guys? I treated myself. I got myself a new sourdough starter, and I made sourdough this week.
Yo.
And I feeling like thrilled, prepared. Like, wait, I let my sourdough starter die after my dad died, because like there was a lot of stuff going on, and I never really got around to getting another one. But I've recently visited like my favorite local bakery, Easy Tiger. Shout out Easy Tiger, you're the coolest. And while I was there, I saw that they were offering their sourdough starter again, which I bought in 2020, like everybody else in the world. Easy Tiger, they use a Levain sourdough starter, which is a solid one, so it's like it has more flour than water, unlike most sourdoughs, and I think that that's way easier to work with, and just the stars aligned, and I got myself fancy bread again, and I'm really living.
Yeah, so like I know nothing about. I remember a lot of people being into this in 2020, and I even had to politely, like, insistently refuse to someone who was trying to get me to take part of a sourdough starter at work, because I lived in a home with no oven. Long story, but I had no means to make bread. I didn't even have a fridge. It was like it was a dark time. So what's the deal here? You take a little bit of it, you then grow it because it's yeasty and it replicates itself.
Yes. So
okay.
Like all things that use a mold product in them for fermentation, like pickles or like different what's the vinegar drink that I hate that people like?
Kombucha.
Yes, kombucha. They're all made using a fermentation process, and so you have like a mother or a starter or something like that in the process, as like you can use as a base, and then you have that little tiny bit of the mold that will then replicate itself as you feed it and take care of it. And so you can, and this is part of the reason why people really like sourdough, especially when we were all locked in our house and going crazy, is because you can make your own sourdough starter just with the wild yeast living in your house, or but it's a really long and complicated process that takes over 2 weeks to like have the sourdough really establish itself, which is why everybody did it. Or you can get you can buy some from a local bakery that has their own sourdough, and you can take this little bit of the starter from them and culture and take care of it in your own home.
Fun. I like a tamed yeast much more than a wild yeast.
I know,
So
I'm still kind of stuck
also.
on that one. That there's wild yeast in my home right now.
In your house right now. Or you can take things like, I think, juniper berries. If you find them in the wild, they have like a white film over them, and that's all yeast. So you could like use that to make your own sourdough as like the starter with that. Yeah, like there's just stuff lives. You don't want to think about it too much or you're gonna go crazy trying to clean it. And it will never happen. But there's just stuff all around you, and like, even in the flour that you buy, there's probably some like yeast living in it from before. It just doesn't have the opportunity to grow.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
What a time to be alive.
It's good to know that if the three of us ever played the massively successful online multiplayer game Final Fantasy XIV, that Marilee's class would be a yeast master.
That is simply not true. I'm a yeast novitiate.
They're still at like level like 4.
I let it die and then didn't do anything with it for like 2 to 3 years.
Letting things die is an important talent, Marilee, as
so true.
we will discover in today's episode. Sometimes you just have to let something die.
Sometimes you just gotta let something die, and sometimes that's harder than it should be. Anyway, I'm really excited that I have this yeast that lives in my house, and I love it.
Perfect. I love yeast. Yeast, more like Mark of the Beast. We're not keeping that. That's going away. Today, we're talking about the survival horror / adventure arcade / puzzle game Faith, the Unholy Trinity, developed by Airdorf Games and published by New Blood Interactive.
Told across 3 chapters, the game focuses on Catholic priest John Ward, who participated in a failed exorcism of a girl named Amy Martin and returns to finish the job. Throughout the game, John learns of a greater demonic plan unfolding that he must stop at all costs.
Originally released as its first chapter only in 2017, a follow-up chapter was released in 2019, and the third and final chapter was released alongside the compilation in 2022. So what are you guys' relationship with the video game Faith?
I had not heard of this, and I think this was a Tyler pick, right? Tyler,
Yes.
You were the one who put this up? Okay. I had a good time. I had a relatively good time with this, so I'd love to hear about y'all's histories with it, but this was a complete new entry for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also hadn't heard of it before, just even at all a little bit. I'm not like the world's greatest video game girly, as we will discuss later. In retrospect, I'd definitely seen a gif of Michael in the context of like the rake stuff before. Have we talked, David, do you know what the rake is?
This is the rake, right?
No. Don't worry about it. We'll talk.
Is it a Slender Man thing?
It's associated with the Slender Man, but it is like, it kind of got folded into like the greater Slender Man creepypasta situation, but it is distinctly its own thing.
Okay.
I like that we refer to, like, we should start referring to all, like, collected universes as situations instead of, like, the Slender Man cinematic universe or something. It's just the Slender Man situation.
All right, well then, Tyler, what about you? What about you, Tyler? You brought this to class.
Explain your
defend
pick.
yourself.
Well, let me get into the Faith situation in that case. So I had previously watched Faith played on Twitch, and I thought it had like a really unique look and a really interesting story. I ended up watching like 2 different people like play through it. And each time I was like, this is really interesting. And they always got different results because the game is fucking hard. And so you will fall into different endings or different sequences. Almost just like no matter what you do, something will happen. But not to me, because I quit after 20 minutes.
No.
It was simply too spooky for me. So I was playing on mouse.
That's why you stopped? It was
I was playing on a keyboard. And I'm not
too.
used to playing on keyboards. I'm used to having a controller. Like I've only just started playing Final Fantasy XIV, the critically acclaimed MMORPG, on a PC, and this is the first game that's ever clicked with me using mouse and keyboard. Otherwise, I have to be on controller. So, like the timing that you have to do, along with the like moving John around, it just didn't work for me. So, I eventually got to the Martin house near the end of the first game. And I knew the boss was coming up, and I was just like, "Mama, I'm not prepared for this." I also died a couple times, and I was reset back to like the car when you first get out of the game, and I'm like, "That's it, I'm done here. I'm just gonna watch someone play it."
Oh, Michael killed you. Okay.
Yes.
Mortis.
Mortis.
I heard it so many times because. Marilee, did you play this one?
Yeah, so I noted this later in the. So I played this one. Michael never killed me. I got him with that cross every time. I was very good at it. I killed him so many times. He dropped his little special note.
There you go.
But no, I got to like I think the either second or third phase of Lisa's fight, the one where she was like zooming around in the pentagram and there was like the swirly thing, and like I kept dying during that fight. It was like really, really frustrating to me, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna put this down, I'm gonna watch some videos, I'll circle back around to it. And then I accidentally left my Switch at my sister's house after babysitting, and I have not gotten it back yet. So I was planning on playing it more, but I simply couldn't.
Well, I'll tell you, this is a very difficult game. This is probably
hard.
See, what it is it's an arcade game.
Yeah.
And it's so labeled an arcade game because there are functionally 9 inputs for this game. The WASD keys, WASD, or holding 2 of them at once that are next to each other, or the arrow keys can allow your character to move 8 directions, and then there is a trigger button, which is the action item, which is typically using your cross, but there's a couple instances where it's not. And that's some old school difficult gaming, especially when you also have to deal with the anxiety of Michael rowing his boat ashore towards your ass at like high frequency while shouting possibly Latin, possibly backwards English at you, depending on the case. The first chapter, it is a standalone game. It is a very effective set piece in raising the stakes and getting the horror set. But it also feels very police questy in its difficulty level because you do need the timing right. You need to position your character correctly. And it's just difficult to use a limited amount of inputs.
Yeah, it is a difficult game, especially if you are like me and don't really play games like this a lot. I'm sure, again, I am planning on circling back around and playing it more, because I don't like not even beating the first boss of the game. It's a real bummer to me personally.
Yeah, it's a real bummer to me too.
Amy is very difficult. Amy's boss battle is very difficult. You're not wrong about that. There was a lot of Mortis in my life, and that's fine. Let's just have this. It does have a forgiving fail state. I guess I will offer that. Is that outside of Tyler's experience of being killed by Michael and going back to the car, the save points are generally liberal throughout the.
Oh yeah, no. So if I had to redo the boss battle from the beginning every time, I would. But no, I had gotten to the cut scene. I've seen this many times where the hand comes out of her face, which, God, I love rotoscoping. We'll talk about it more later, but I love rotoscoping. Anyway, there was one other thing I wanted to say, which is I knew it was an arcade game from the second the game opens on the Switch, because on either side of like the square panel, there's like some art on the opposite side.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a very cool cover art, and I was like, oh, it's exactly like an arcade cabinet.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, in that case, y'all, let's talk about the themes behind this evil, evil game. So the first one that we're going to talk about is doubt indulged becomes doubt affirmed. As we'll track throughout this month, religious horror benefits from and relies on how doubts manifest for characters who are particularly pious. When John experiences doubts in a game called Faith, no less, it evokes a type of danger for us that is not physical or psychic, but rather spiritual.
Yeah, I think chapter 2 is really the girl for this one, because it is all about John losing faith because he failed a second time at the exorcism. There's a mechanic that gets introduced in chapter 2 where John loses his crucifix, which is his weapon, and that is very effective. I liked all of that, and the multiple endings gave us a chance to sort of explore what would happen if a priest lost his way, which I do think was also kind of fun. Downside, because these were kind of created in segments, there is a canonical ending to chapters 1 and 2, and then subsequently there is a good ending in chapter 3, and so it's a little bit harder to think about this as truly an interactive fiction, but as standalone entries they do weather the test.
Mm-hmm. In Wendigoon is a YouTuber who likes to talk about like lots of different spooky stuff. He has a, I think, 2-hour video talking all about faith, and like the lore and stuff behind it. It's a very interesting watch. It's one of the things that I did as research when I couldn't play the game. And this in particular, his doubt is actually something that Wendigoon brings up a bunch, because he has a theory that that John's faith throughout is kind of like diminishing. Like, because in the first game he has a gold cross, and in the second game he has a silver cross, and in the third game he has a bronze cross, until like towards the end where he has a gold one again, and it's like his faith is like tarnishing and like degrading the metal to a which I thought was a really interesting thought experiment that I didn't see anywhere else, and I thought that worked really well with this particular theme.
Well, I did not notice that, as I am famously colorblind, and I will say, because now's the chance to mention it, this game is a puzzle game with a color-based puzzle, and you can eat a shoe. You can eat a shoe.
There are no accessible options.
That
for
is
this?
correct. There are no accessible options for the color-based puzzle in the daycare. You just had to, muscle through it. But that's fine.
Fucking sucks. Come on,
Yeah, that's
guys.
crazy.
The full released version of the game with all three, the Unholy Trinity, was released in 2022. No colorblind accessibility? Be better.
Yeah. Listen, fine. It's fine.
No,
go beat
it's
up
not.
that guy.
Don't say that. It's not fucking fine.
Yeah,
I'm furious.
Eat a shoe.
Eat a shoe,
Eat a shoe.
Airdorf.
Yeah.
Well, for me, as far as this theme goes, I really love. So it's well known. It's part of our personal canon that I have been to a Catholic high school, and therefore I have the baggage to go along with it. To me, I love stories about someone that's really pious going through a harrowing experience that makes them question their faith. I really love that shit. We're going to talk about that quite a bit this month. So I think this is a really fun game to kick things off with, because it is called Faith, and so much of the game is about John's faith and how he perseveres, and even questions at some point near the end, like what's the point of all this? I'm not strong enough to do this anymore. Especially because there's definite concrete proof of Satan in this game, but there's only faith to rely on in terms of proof of God's existence. Right. So I love this shit. I love seeing a priest go through it. I don't know. I have to go sit and talk to a psychiatrist probably about why I love that so much. But anyway, we're not here for therapy. We're here to talk about our next theme in this episode. She's not fashion. She's a whole damn iconography. Girl.
Oh my God.
Another aspect of Catholic and religious horror is the use of the centuries-long established religious iconography. In this game, the symbol of the crucifix is used as John's primary weapon, quote unquote, to confront in-game enemies. But the game also uses stained glass, the confessional booth, and non-Catholic symbolism with great effectivity. Yes, I personally really love the use of iconography. I love how frequently it is also subverted. For instance, the save point in Chapter 3 is a recreation of the Pietà, which, for people who might not be familiar with it, it is a very famous statue.
You are familiar with it, you just don't know it, because everybody copies this pose. Everybody, it's everywhere.
Yes, it's a very frequently referenced thing, but it is the original version of this image is of the Virgin Mary cradling her son Jesus Christ after he's been taken down from the taken down from the cross, and he is dead in her arms. So it's meant to like evoke these feelings of like the spiritual, but also the physical, and that it's the Virgin Mary and Jesus, but it's also a mother mourning her son's death. And in this game, instead of that tragedy being the death of Jesus, it's regarded as a celebration of the second death, which is an in-game phenomenon for something that is related to the coming of the Antichrist.
And this was Michelangelo, right?
I think it was Michelangelo, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick Google, because I feel like it's also Michelangelo, but it's been a long time since I studied Renaissance art.
It is.
Great.
The only place I know this from is Civilization 6.
Oh my God.
So I am familiar with it, but it is just a great work of art that increases your culture and tourism.
Incredible.
Suck it, Catholics. Video games rock.
Yeah.
I also loved anytime these were deployed. Sometimes it did feel a little ham-fisted. I will say the confession booth is essentially a door to another area. But he does a confession in it. So like, what do I really need? Like, he goes in there, he confesses his sins, in the robot voice. It's great. I really, really liked John's sprite design because in a typical Sierra game where you would create a sprite like this, a sprite is the character, the player character who walks around. You'd put the white dot where the eyeball should be, and his white dot is where the priest collar is on his neck. And I thought that was really like a smart move to depict a priest.
Yeah, I loved that. It's a very effective, very simple storytelling. Very good.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
I agree with that too.
You're going to see this kind of thing a lot throughout this month because everybody loves this iconography because it goes really hard and looks great.
I have a dear friend of mine in Australia who is very much of the same mind as I am, that the aesthetics of Catholicism are way, way cooler than the actual reality of Catholicism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, I watched Conclave on the plane over.
Conclave!
A film. Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, Marilee, because a film that I'd only ever heard my friends Gavin and Louis talk about on the mixed reviews, and they say Conclave, so I thought that was the actual name of the film. And when I was watching it on the plane, by the way, perfect place to watch Conclave is a plane, because all you can hear is Ray Fiennes breathing at certain points, and it's meant to make you feel very claustrophobic, and it worked on a plane. And the flight crew was like, "Oh, what are you watching?" And I said Conclave, and I said it earnestly, not as a bit. I genuinely thought that was the name of the film, and then learned that is not true, and had to immediately tell Louis and Gavin about what had happened because I was betrayed by my friends. So when I said it at the end of the ritual episode, when I said Conclave goodbye, I was being genuine about what I thought the end of the film, or what I thought the name of the film was.
Oh my God. I thought what a funny bit that David did. No. Oh God, I didn't know.
David became the bit.
I am the bit. I am part bit now. Right? This arm is bit. It's all bit now.
Oh yeah, no,
well,
I can see it's like 8-bit.
Speaking of 8-bit, this game is all old school gaming style, including an 8-bit sort of display. So horror video games stretch back as long as gaming itself. One of the OG Space Invaders has aspects of horror gaming that persist today. The slow descent of an unyielding, malevolent force against a black background as your only defenses become chipped away and the sound effects gradually speed up. It causes anxiety in the player. Faith is stylized like an Apple II or Atari 2600 game with emulated low frame rate display and pixels on an isometric plane. Added to this are rotoscoped cutscenes which complement the existing style and dialogue provided by an early text-to-speech format called the Software Automatic Mouth, or SAM.
Yeah, if you want some horror, look up advertisements for the Software Automatic Mouth, because it looks like a happy little computer, but then you read the description and it's like dystopian for some particular reason. Sam is. I mean, you played or watched this game, like, you know that the speech to the text to speech is very primitive. It is taking, bits and boops and turning them into speech, versus speech emulation software that we have today. But before we go any further on this, did either of you play Apple II or Atari 2600 games?
Absolutely not.
Neither of you. Okay. I was only curious because this is so in that style that they added like scan lines.
Yeah, I loved that.
Okay. Well, scan lines are there because when older televisions would display anything, there were scan lines on it.
Yep.
And pixel artists use that to sort of soften their creation. So if you look at pixel art that's designed in 8-bit, particularly 16-bit, not so much, but 8-bit in particular, you almost need that softening to get the effect of that you're looking at something. If you turn scan lines off, this game is wild. Just if either of the two of you want to launch it back up and just turn scan lines off, it is a stark and kind of like heinous experience, but in like a fun way. Yeah, it's really wild. So they do a really, really, really good job.
I love
That's
that.
Awesome. Speaking of that old school aesthetic, I really do love how the imagery that they use that's been so like confined by the technology that's being like used here, really amplifies the horror, especially in chapter 2. Marilee, I'm going to let you talk all about the rotoscoping, but like the rotoscoped cutscenes are incredibly effective, as well as all of the different kind of demonic sprites. There are demons depicted in this game that I feel like come out of a Bosch painting, which is really incredible considering the graphical limitations here. But are even scarier than a lot of demons I see in like TV and movies. Like it's truly
really
horrifying. But Marilee, please, the rotoscoping, talk to us about that.
I love rotoscoping.
So cool.
As soon as I saw the first cutscene, I knew that was rotoscoping before I even like Googled it or learned more information, because once you know to look for it, the look of rotoscoping is so distinctly fluid and wonderful. If you are unfamiliar,
I was actually just about to say, like, do you want to talk to us about what rotoscoping is?
Yeah, so rotoscoping is the process of taking like a film of a live action person and then drawing over it. It was used a lot in early animation, and also particularly Don Bluth uses rotoscoping a lot, and that's how you get some really beautifully fluid animation, because it's anybody who says that if you trace over something it's not art should watch rotoscoped image and then be like, oh yes, of course it is art, because look at it, it's gorgeous. And the way that Airdorf used this fluid animation style and then made it look like it was pixelated, I think is one of like the big triumphs of this game, because I think stylistically it is so incredible. Because if you're not paying attention, it just comes out of nowhere and you think, why is that so smooth? And it's very uncanny valley after the very technical like 8-bit stuff that had been going on before that. I just think it's so incredible. I love rotoscoping.
Yeah, and it doesn't take you out. So remember when we talked to Hobbs Barrow and they actually hand animated this, but they did it not through rotoscoping, but they did it through a grid base, which is actually how I do a lot of my sketch drawing, is that you divide a real image into grids, and then you zoom in on the detail, you sketch the grid, blah, 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 blah. It's like playing Picross, which I know lots of people were doing on the DS when it first came out. It was very popular to do Picross. But the images that we saw there were sort of hand animated. These were done through the rotoscope, because when you just take the outline, which is the sort of drawing over the actual image, so they would record a model doing, say, a hand movement, which I'm trying to emulate for the camera. then you sort of trace over that, then you have that hand. You can then replicate it, move it, change it around. And so it matches the pixel art style rather than confusing it. So we're not actually jumping to a cutscene with vastly different graphics.
No.
We're using the existing graphical style to express this new thing.
Yeah.
The
great.
the sprites on display too are also kind of color coordinated. John is blue, Father Garcia is like a deep gray. I believe Amy is purple.
Yeah, Lisa's
yellow. Lisa's yellow. Any of the Gary cultists and Gary himself are red.
Which of course, again, no accessibility options. What the fuck? Sorry, David.
It's fine.
Yeah, sorry,
It's
David.
fine. I mean, there are effects to change all the colors on the screen, but not for accessibility. I unlocked one called Toilet Bowl, which made everything poop and pee colored.
Wow. Did that actually help at all?
Gross.
No, no. But it was fine. It doesn't. I mean, it's funny. You also get, like you talked about the backgrounds. You get different background art that unlocks as you go through the game as well.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, including some fan stuff that people really liked, which I think it's neat that we're talking about a game that also has like a huge fan community and people are very into, and a fair bit of shipping of John and Father Garcia. Maybe we will get to that in due course.
Yeah, they have I could see it.
Okay. Well,
Before we get there, we've got to ask the first of our two questions, which is this horror? Were you scared playing this video game that uses 8-bit style? Did it scare you? You scaredies?
Yes, I am a self-professed scaredy when it comes to games like this that are very, very scary. I talked before about like, well, yeah, I'm playing Resident Evil and playing Silent Hill. I feel like I'm getting better as like a horror gamer, and then like I play this and I'm like, it's like legitimately uncomfortable in some aspects because it is so scary and disturbing. It's very like much like if A24 dropped a video game. The idea that they would do it in this very stylized way and in something like a really kind of scary, fucked up story, I think is really cool, but it is indeed like frightening. The rotoscoping in particular, because it does have that uncanny valley essence to it, and the imagery that is used in the rotoscoping, extremely alarming and uncomfortable. So yes, I did find this to be a scary game. I think it's probably the scariest thing we've played so far. What about you?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I think the most unnerved I've been this whole year was the moment I went into the Marsh house. It's like not Marsh. I don't remember what their last name is. Martin, that's it. I went into the Martin house, and the background music that had been playing as I wandered through the forest, like trying to find as many notes as possible, stopped, and it was dead quiet. It was like, oh, I hate that. I hate this so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Music was a huge tension builder, I think, throughout all 3 chapters of the game. I really am appreciative that I waited to play this when I was sitting at my desk and had earphones on, so that I could truly experience all the real spookiness of this. And I think we've talked about him a fair number of times, but Michael making a beeline for you, like the Yeti on Ski Free, but also shouting demonic Latin at you. It was almost always scary for me, unless there was a deer on the screen with me. And then I was like, good, eat the deer. I can go run away here. Which was a lot of fun.
I felt really bad the one time a deer died. I was like, no, I didn't protect the deer.
Sorry, deer.
That's how I
Run
felt
faster, I guess. That's what I did. Or I brandished my cross. Have some faith, deer. Stop praying to your deer god from last week. Motor's not here to save you now, bitch. Just truly and honestly. I did
literally sound like the protagonist of one of our folk horror movies, David.
Oh no.
Christianity supreme over your old school pagan god.
You know what? That was last month. We've moved on. I do like one of the times that you turn Michael away, he goes, I go unwillingly. And I was just obsessed with that. I kept wanting to rebuff him so I could hear the computer say, I go unwillingly.
Yeah.
My favorite was when he said, suffer, like in a long drawn out, like it was like a computer was having an aneurysm. I thought it was really great.
There are
Very
a
scary.
couple surprising moments of humor in this game, and sometimes it's things like that.
Well, next up we have the other potentially more important question that we ask here on this podcast. So, gotta ask, did you guys think this was queer?
Yeah, I don't want to be a hater so early in the podcast, but I think this was the part that was a little bit harder for me, given the inspiration of the game that Airdorf has talked about. Like, this was inspired by Satanic Panic from the 1970s, 1980s that we covered when we talked My Best Friend's Exorcism at the beginning of the year. It's setting in the late 1980s. The absence of queer characters, I think, is the thing that's notable for us to talk about. I think that, you could look at John and his struggles with faith as a queer lived experience, fine. And we certainly have done that mental gymnastics for other properties and franchises. I was just a little disappointed. I don't think Chapter 1 has the space to do this, because Chapter 1 is really just the woods, the house, and you're done. Mm-hmm. But Chapters 2 and 3... 2, where you go into the sewers and there's these addicts and they're outcasts. I felt like we could have explored a homosexuality somewhere there, or queerness somewhere there. In Chapter 3, the free clinic, which might also have some fertility stuff that it's doing double work at. But I think to set a game in the 80s and not sort of like pay homage to HIV and AIDS that was happening, throughout our country, is just a big miss to me. And it sort of speaks to like a lack of representation on the development team. And that kind of leads to us. On the other hand, I think rotoscoping is queer and that we own that. So, like,
I agree.
At least, that one's ours.
I will sign up for your newsletter about rotoscoping being the gayest animation medium. So,
I don't have any thesis support to this statement. This is just a straight up flat claim that we own this one.
No, I completely, it's a vibe based check, and the vibe is rotoscoping's pretty queer.
I mean, Marilee, that 60s Spider-Man show had rotoscoping, didn't it? We own that too. That's gay, right?
Oh yeah, no, that's queer as hell. We got that.
Okay, great. But characters, little flat otherwise.
Yeah, I think that pretty much anything where you have a very limited cast of like actual characters, it's gonna be, unless it's like intensely introspective and we can like really see the thoughts of the character, it's going to be hard to find a lot of representation. And this kind of game only has like 5 characters that show up as like real people, because you have John, you have Father Garcia, you've got Gary, you've got Amy, and you've got Lisa, and they barely ever talk to each other. You know what I mean? So it's hard to like find stuff.
Yeah, I am in agreement with you too. I think that there is definitely like, first of all, the representation is totally lacking. We don't really have any queer people in this game whatsoever.
And there should be, because David's right. David's right. Like, it's you have an entire potential like encampment for homeless people in the sewers and nothing about AIDS. That's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there is a degree of concern that there's like moral decay happening. I think in Chapter 3, especially when you get to like the actual city, because everything else is told in a very rural context. When you get to the city is basically a war zone, and there's cops everywhere and there's graffiti all over stuff. I think that is kind of like an accurate depiction of criticism of the 80s, and or concerns that people had that there was moral degeneration going on. And that is all part and parcel of Satanic Panic. Part of me is kind of happy that there are no queer people in that instance, because I don't want queer people to be depicted as degenerates, because then we would be dealing with a very different conversation if there were. But I think still, though, that there is like a lot of grappling with faith and dogma in this, mostly from John. But I think a lot of the people that are either possessed or run into demon encounters are the young or the most vulnerable. So it's like usually children, it's usually women, or it's usually someone that has some sort of like either previous mental illness or some sort of substance abuse problem, like we talk about with the unhoused and the drug users in the sewers. which again, very like 80s, like, oh, the 80s were so morally degenerate, blah blah blah.
I mean, they talked about intravenous drug use, like in some of the notes in the tunnels, and again, nothing about HIV. What are you doing?
I think that is definitely, as David said, like part of the lack of representation on the dev team. But I think, like, if we get down to it, like, what is actually in the game that could be considered queer? David, you did accurately depict this as mental gymnastics for other media that we've talked about, but I do think John, our main protagonist, does have a queer element to him. I think, and like a priest going through some sort of like crisis of faith and concern about his identity is queer coded. I think that's kind of surface level, but I do think that if you get down into it, like, John does have like a sexual relationship with a woman. He does have a lot of like concerns that put him as like a person not in power, dealing with their crisis. And I think a lot of like religious queer people or people who are queer who were religious in the past, like me, I was, end up feeling a lot like John, where it's like, I have morally failed and I have also failed in my duty according to what the church teaches me, because the church teaches me that like for me personally, I should get married to a woman and procreate and have kids and all that crap. For John, it would be like, you have to be a servant of Christ and you have to be a missionary of Christ and a servant to the people. John kind of fails in both those regards because he has his own personal crisis of faith and fails to save people. So I think that there is a little bit of a parallel. I think it's kind of a shaky rope bridge that I have created, but I do think it's better than no bridge at all.
Oh no, I agree that I think if you're gonna pick like sort of a queer insert, it's probably gonna be John.
Yeah, 100%.
He's also the player character, so of course, shocking information that we would choose the player character to self-insert. That's sort of what a video game asks you to do. And so I guess that we didn't get a rotoscope of John looking directly into the camera and being like, I'm a straight man. Well, that would have probably taken me out, but otherwise, like, I'm good. I'm happy. Like, I would have slept with Lisa too. Like, who am I? I'm not special.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Lisa in a minute, but I will say that his canon love interest, the woman that he addressed a letter to and also got a letter back from, her name was Molly. We never see her on screen, but like, Molly is the person he's like, hey, the church is probably going to come to you at some point and be like, this is what happened. Here is what actually happened from my perspective. And she leaves him a letter in the beginning of chapter 2 being like, I can't handle this anymore, John. I'm leaving you.
Right. Well, then let's dive into the game in earnest. Are you both ready?
This plot beat by beat has not been approved by the Vatican, but fuck it, let's go.
You know what? I can't. The game first begins with John driving his silver sedan in the dead of the night. He explains that it is September 21st, 1987, a full year since he went into that house. He says, I have to finish what I started, and notes that what he is about to do has not been approved by the Vatican, which appeared in a lot of the promotional art for the game. I think I'm worried that all month long I'm going to be a pedant of like, we introduced some cool like Vatican related Catholic stuff, which I think is super interesting and fun, and then we do nothing with it, but whatever, it's fine. This hasn't been approved by the Vatican, NBD. John then traverses a confusing forest on his way to the Martins' home, but while on his way he is stalked and chased by a terrifying creature that crawls towards him. The player can repel the creature with John's crucifix and also use the crucifix on nearby objects to gain backstory about what brought him to the home the first time and now what brings him back again.
I regret to inform you guys that my first impression of this game, and this is very embarrassing for me as a person, but I will share my truth here in this space with you and also the listeners. My first impression of this game was that, it's like that FNAF cutscene, like the mini game from I think FNAF 3, like 5 minutes, like where they're like, he's on a road, it's 8-bit. It's just like, it's so dumb, but that was my first thought, and I had to share it with you.
Yeah. We are pretty anti Five Nights at Freddy's here.
Yeah, listen, Scott Coffin can
eat a boot.
Yeah, he sure can.
I'm really glad you used the non-acronym because I didn't even know what we were talking about. I was just hoping I would pick it up from context. Here's the deal. I love this forest. I love this. This is essentially I mean, this was made in Game Maker, which is a software tool that helps you develop video games.
Mm-hmm.
You do need to know coding. You do need to have understanding of like game design. It's not quite RPG Maker, but it's not that far off from it. But I like the things that this dev decided to do. So the forest is randomly generating trees and rocks and other decor on any non-assigned space. So otherwise it is an 8x8 grid. As you travel from let's say grid 8, you go to the right, you're going to end back at 1. It's very cleverly designed though, and the use of the randomness makes it a modern game because you could not pull that off on an arcade cartridge. There's not enough memory to do it. So I really like that. I did have fun looking for collectibles. I think it was a blast to go around there. The threat of the little creature coming to get you was sort of ever present and almost always elicited a jump scare out of me. I really liked it. I thought it was well done. But if you do take too long, like maybe you're trying to get the 18th note like me or like Marilee, you will see a couple of twins walk one way off a screen, and that is to help you, the player, figure out where to go if you simply cannot navigate the idea that there's a map in front of you. And I do think that's also a really nice touch for a game dev to add some waymaking.
Yeah, I always love it when game makers take care to try and have anti-frustration features like that in case because again, it is a large grid. If you don't know what you're supposed to be looking for, you can get lost. And I thought that was really nice. Also creepy. Because children are inherently scary, especially at night in the middle of the woods when they're small purple shapes.
Well, this is not the only haunted forest leading to hell that we have experienced in pop culture. We also have the Divine Comedy all the way back to Dante, which starts off with a journey through a confusing forest before Virgil appears and takes Dante to hell on a guided tour. So I think that's like a neat little kind of like start here is like, well, especially because so many of the notes, like the tutorial notes, mention the idea that you are lost in the woods. So I think that's pretty neat. And then, of course, John is also kind of lost in the woods in his crisis of faith. So I think that's cool and effective. The spooky Ricketts demon is also incredibly effective, especially when it switches to the rotoscope cutscene before John gets mauled to death. Which happens all the time. John is constantly getting just like turned into a pile of blue pixels covered in blood. But for me, my favorite thing that Michael, the Ricketts demon, would say was corruption, thou art my father, because I was like, oh, cool. Like the witch. Yeah. Because that's what they say at the end.
Did you happen to pause when Michael was on screen?
No.
Instead of getting the usual pause menu, you are just subject to a endlessly looping rotoscope of Michael crawling towards you and then sort of like looking at you spookily and then crawling towards you and then looking at you spookily. The first time it happened, I was like, oh, I didn't pause fast enough and I died. But instead, it's like a little Easter egg for you to discover.
I hate that.
That's horrible. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's cute.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Well, that's creepy. I'm going to move on now. So eventually, John and ourselves find ourselves inside the Martins' home. John gets upstairs and is attacked by demonic forces resembling the girl Amy. After the player defeats Amy multiple times, the way to the attic is opened and John can complete the exorcism. The player must complete an arcade shoot 'em up, or rather pray 'em up, sequence to defeat the demon possessing Amy, who eventually flings herself out a window. Excommunic-April, flinging yourself out a window tally gets raised by 1.
You've got 1 fling out the window.
One religious defenestration. John returns downstairs to find a gun with a single bullet. The player must now decide on one of 5 targets before returning to the car and leaving to go home. Since this was originally released as a self-contained game, any of the 5 endings are viable and spooky, but as the story does continue with Chapter 2, the canon ending is to return to the car and use the gun against the white, rickety demon creature. So, what did you all do to end Chapter 1?
Yeah, so without really intending to, and I was not following a guide because so far the puzzles were not guide worthy. There was really no puzzle in chapter 1, so this was arcade only. Not that wasn't difficult. That battle, not an easy cakewalk. But I went back to the car because I was like, I'm not going to shoot anyone because I'm a priest. And then Michael came at me and I wanted to pray at him, but like I only had a gun, and so I shot him. And I loved this ending because it was capital C catharsis. You shoot him, but he doesn't die, and he's crawling towards you, and then gets whammed by a Mack truck. And I was like, A, funny, and B, like a little bit like that's kind of what you wanted at the end. That was a nice bite-sized experience. All in, I think you could play the first game in 10 or 15 minutes, truly, if you're not terrible like I was. But like, I think I like a great little thing. I did go back and play a few more times. I have now played all 5 of these. I think the 5th ending is the best one. But I also did go and use the gun on the mirror to fight the secret boss, which is something that this game has in every one of its chapters.
I loved that the mirror was the way to the secret boss because, again, I didn't do it myself because, once again, putting myself on the blast, I couldn't beat Amy. She was too hard. It was very frustrating.
Pentagram Amy is the worst.
But
she's very teleporty.
I knew that something was up with that mirror because the first time I approached it, I was like, oh my god, there's something behind me, and I couldn't figure out what to do about it. But then I went back to the mirror later and I was like, no, it wasn't my shadow. I knew it was something weird because the shape was gone because Amy was already released in the house someplace else. So that was fun.
Tyler, what about you? When you watched this, what was the ending you saw first, or what was the ending you liked the most?
So ending 5 is the canon one, is the one that I saw when I watched it. Basically, anytime though that I've seen people playing and get different endings, I think they're all really cool and spooky and satanic and bleh, which is fun. But yes, and the canon ending is the one that I am most familiar with. The Mack truck, by the way.
Oh yeah, Mack truck.
The Mack truck, by the way, says Airdorf on the side.
Oh, fun! I did not notice that. Good catch.
Yeah, there's also an achievement that you can get if you get killed by the truck in all 3 chapters.
Oh, that's awesome.
I did not do that.
I think it's very funny.
I got killed by it once though. Mortis. I will just say, yes, you were talking about killing. One of the things that you can shoot is a deer. And so you both watched this, right? You both experienced the shoot the deer ending. I was having such Until Dawn flashbacks because those deer, they fucking murder your ass later.
Yeah, they drag you out of a car that you crashed to murder you extra hard. Why are people putting deer in situations, I guess is what I have to ask, because I can't believe that murderous deer has shown up a second time.
Yeah, here we are.
Kind of sort of a
Matt
third
Bartlett
if
would
you
love this.
want to call Motor a kind of deer.
That's right.
Motor
She's
is her
kind
own
of a
thing.
deer.
She got antlers, though.
Well, so do I.
True.
Okay, so chapter 2 begins with a flashback where we get to play as Father Garcia. In an unnamed home, Father Garcia is trying to exorcise Michael Davies for about 3 months. Throughout his exorcism, Father Garcia has been photographing Michael with his camera as evidence of the heavy toll the demon has taken on Michael's body. Father Garcia walks down into his basement to start another exorcism session. He tries to ask how Michael is doing, but the demon resists, and then Michael breaks free of his chains and the lights cut off. Turning the light back on, Father Garcia exits the home to find Michael eating a bystander. After Father Garcia asks Michael what he has done, the twisted form of Michael crashes through the window and escapes, bringing that tally up to 2. Father Garcia dashes off to catch up to Michael and finish the exorcism, ending the flashback.
Yeah, I want to say that a lot of games that have sequels struggle with this. there might be a new player to your franchise, and this might be their first experience having things. So how do you sort of introduce some of the basic mechanics without giving a sort of haphazard tutorial of like, here's a person who recently bested and conquered the most demonic force on earth, and now they don't know how to swing their sword. And I really love when a game does this and gives you a side character to play that you can do a little bit of that tutorial work for. And even though it's Father Garcia, who is probably more advanced than John, I do think it's just really clever. And I love that this game did this. And I loved learning more about Father Garcia and ultimately Michael, who is the crawly demon we saw from chapter 1.
I love that Tyler called him the Ricketts demon. I think that's really fun.
Yeah, because they, I think it's like a post-credits thing in the first
Yeah,
game.
it's in the news article. They say that they called it a chupacabra. They did genetic testing and they found out that he had rickets, which happens in animals and children that have been away from the sun for a while.
And turns out Michael's been in a basement for 3 months, so not ideal. But the photos that Father Garcia takes, excellent storytelling with visuals. I think it's so cool to depict the bodily disintegration of Michael as he becomes this demon creature. I just, there's so much like good work that's being done with the imagery in this game that really just like it jumps in your face after this how simplified all the rest of the graphics are. So
yeah,
really
the
cool
sequence
stuff.
Specifically where Father Garcia goes and he finds Michael eating the person and the eyeball falls out of his mouth. That's some cool fucking imagery. That's sick as hell. That was great.
That was so good. It was so good. Oh, it was so gross. That was so good.
Yeah.
This game rocks.
The game begins in earnest, with the player again controlling John as he heads into a cemetery, dealing with demonic figures that are tied to thralls who sit waiting for John in a crypt, and his own reflection. After the player completes each arcade challenge, John proceeds out of the cemetery and into an old abandoned church. Inside, John gives his confession. He says he broke his vows to God and the ministry for not being able to exorcise Amy's demon and left her to die in the forests. He asks to be forgiven for the current and past sins. Through the rest of the church, John finds evidence of a paranormal investigation team who had come to the church to investigate an entity called the Spindly Lady. The player has to complete puzzles to navigate the remainder of the church and eventually make their way outside. John, go ahead, David.
I like this so much. I just love I loved chapter 2. I think maybe story-wise it was the weakest, but I think gameplay-wise I was vibing on the arcade action of chapter 2 a lot more than I was the Amy fight. I don't know if maybe the attack cycles were a little bit more predictable, or I just was more familiar with the mechanic of damaging enemies by holding the cross up for a long period of time, but I was firing on all cylinders on these arcade challenges. I loved that we learned who these demons were. We were starting to understand this deeper cult. I had no idea why we threw this paranormal investigator team in there, but like, whatever, who cares? I love that they all got theirs. Fuck you guys. Stop filming ghosts. Learn something. I just loved it. The puzzles, though, these were miserable. These were adventure game puzzles. We talked about this when we talked about Hobbs Barrow, but this was not, I will trade you a hairpin for a fishnet for the, deed to this estate or whatever. This one was like, you really need to remember what these symbols mean. You need to walk on them in a certain order. And it felt like a 1980s adventure game, except that it was giving me in-game clues of what to do. And normally those would be in the instruction booklet that you would only have if you bought the game and not if you stole it like a filthy thief. So this is like some old school DRM based puzzle gaming. And so that was nice because it's an homage to the systems that this came from. But I was like, fuck this puzzle. Ugh.
Oh man, I love the confession scene that John has I think it's so cinematic,
Yeah.
For instance, if you saw like the very first episode of season 1 of Daredevil, that starts off with Daredevil in a confessional booth, and we get to learn quite a lot about the character. And it's great because confessional booths are an awesome opportunity for a character to unload, and we get to hear about them, and they get to, if it's in a performance of some kind, the performer usually gets to give like a really fantastic monologue. Sam, our robot voice, does a great job communicating John's feelings. But I love that the whole thing is subverted because the entity on the other side, who we never meet, but I think is Gary or some sort of Gary-esque entity, is the thing that John is confessing to. So he is John is fascinating because he is kind of like a satanic priest in a way. He keeps on doing things and contacting demonic entities that are slowly corrupting his soul and spirit, even as he goes and defeats all these different demons. And I think that is a really cool turn. And it's part of why I really love the story of this game, and I love seeing a priest put through so many trials like this, because I think if your whole life is devoted to this one thing, and now you have to question it, where does that leave you? And I think that's a cool area that we get to explore in this game.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that, and I really like it. I really liked the little notes about the ghost investigators. I thought that was really fun.
Me too.
Like, so much stuff in chapter 2. If you get all of the notes and like kind of put together all of the lore stuff, it builds to a really fun picture. And again, I didn't play through the puzzles myself, so I was not frustrated by that. I just thought it was all a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I will tell you, as someone who played through the stuff, outside of the clock puzzle, which was the only one that was like memorize these shapes and then go back on them, or a hand will eat you. Like I was having a blast. I was having a great time. Yay, chapter 2.
I also think the rotoscoping that's done in the little save crypt, which is where you also have to go to save the game, is really cool and effective because it's John being really creepy in the mirror, and then he like his reflection shoves a key in his eye, and then John's actually bleeding as he walks away, and we just have these little pixels of red splattering down from his sprite. So cool. Love it.
Very creepy. We love it.
Very creepy. I love a path. And again, that's the sort of thing that like you could make a trail in an old school game, like in a small cartridge, because that's just essentially stretching the sprite out. But you can't make a path which remembers where the blood has been. You can only do it as like an extended sprite and not a memory file. So again, we're really flexing the muscle that this is built on a modern system, but it looks like an old game, and that's so fucking cool. And what a great way to express the art. And those are the things that this did that I really, really loved.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the memory files for all these Sam audios. Like in an old school Sierra game, you'd be lucky to get like 2 or 3 phrases, not this whole like dialogue ass script. Okay, well, once you complete these puzzles and you get outside of the church, John finds 3 decapitated bodies of thralls on the ground with red marking connecting them, and inside a ritualistic pentagram is a newspaper article which begins to speak to John from a demonic source. Very creepy.
Very good.
From here, very good. I loved the fucking news article, because at first I was like, what's going on here? And then I was like, oh, what's going on here? And then I was like, oh my God. Just really, really well done.
The music shifting like right as the newspaper article starts to get weird, also super good.
From here, John follows the path down into the sewers where addicts were part of a group worshiping the devil. The player must direct John to obtain a flashlight, and that adds darkness as a mechanic to the game. John finds himself at the end of the tunnel system and confronted by a demon that appears as a nun. John heads to confront the demon when a man in gray appears, explaining that he is also a priest, and he recites the 91st Psalm. The player must control John to deflect attackers while the priest friend recites the psalm to defeat the demon. John's eyes quickly open and he wakes from his bed, heavily breathing, revealing that most of chapter 2 was just his memory.
Or potentially
a dream.
Probably a little bit of column A, column B.
Yeah.
That newspaper was so good. Especially like, I can hear the voice as I'm reading it, like, which is very hard to do for me when reading something, but it was just the way that the tone shifted so dramatically. Really narratively awesome. I don't know how I feel about this mostly being a dream in chapter 2, just because like dream sequences I think are difficult to use because they can be like short and just communicate something, and that's great. If it ends up going on for too long, then you can end up feeling as an audience member like you got the rug pulled out from under you, and potentially like it was a waste of time because it's like, oh well, it was just a dream, this didn't actually move the plot or anything. I think this one threaded the needle for me personally. What did you two think about it?
I'm historically hate when things are, it was revealed. Like, I love a dream sequence, don't get me wrong. I hate it when it was all a dream sequence. I think that that's cheap. I get where this is coming from, but like, I know that this wasn't a memory because the guy in gray who shows up is Father Garcia, who, when we see him in person in chapter 3, says, "It's nice to finally meet you." So, but
Right.
like, they know about each other. Maybe it's like some psychic connection or something. I have no idea what's happening here, but I wish that we could have found a different way to go forward other than it was all a dream.
Yes, I agree with all of that, and on gimmicks, I'm a known hater of it was all just a dream at the last minute. If it's set up like somebody drinks a potion to take a dream and then that's the episode, I'm there. I'm sold. But if it's just a rug pull at the end, a la Family Matters, Urkel's not really a vampire, of course it's all just a dream. I knew that because I knew Urkel's not actually a vampire. I don't need that.
Yeah.
Family Matters and their dream sequences. Urkel always getting turned into something. But here's what I'll say. The rotoscoping of John waking up is kind of hot. And I don't know how to explain it, but we get a lot of it in chapter 3 because my man keeps having nightmares. And every time I was like, wake up next to me, daddy. I mean, father. I mean, whatever. It's really, that sequence is so well animated, and unlike a lot of the other rotoscoping, which kind of happens in a universe of itself, which I think is very on brand for the design of this game, him waking up out of bed is almost completely backgrounded, and that makes it an even different rotoscope cutscene than everything else we've seen. It feels almost more realistic, and so I gave that so much grace and credit that I at the end of this, I didn't mind. I loved this chapter. Chapter 2 rocks. I was so happy about this one.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think that chapter 2 generally is a triumph, and I think that it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I obtained 2 endings during my normal playthrough. I got the first ending. It was like, fuck that noise, I'm going back. Because in my first playthrough, we had almost beaten the nun demon, and then she got my guy. She got Father Garcia. She ate him, and I somehow vanquished her and was like, well, fuck that. I need to let this guy in gray live. So I naturally unlocked 2 of them. I started a second playthrough to get all of the endings, and I just couldn't bring myself to do all of the things you needed to get the secret ending in this one. But the other ending for this chapter is that you can actually have John join the cult. By drawing a pentagram with your dropping blood from your eye, and then also doing some other conditions throughout the chapter.
Don't you have to like give a child to the demon in the confessional booth or something?
And then you become part of the cult. But that obviously is not canon because the game does go on. You do challenge the cult in the next episode. Yeah. So fine, whatever.
Well, so chapter 3 surrounds requests from Father Garcia, who again canonically can't have died, to find Amy's twin brothers, who are kind of mentioned in the first part of the game, and remember the little purple blobs that were running around, all of that stuff. John begins his search at a clinic that Amy volunteered at. When John arrives at the clinic, he is ambushed by a monstrous creature that straps him to a gurney and restricts the player's ability to use the crucifix. The player must direct John to hide from the demon. Eventually, a police officer finds John and frees him. Together, they go to escape the clinic when the demon catches up to them. John uses his crucifix and the officer uses his gun, and together, they defeat the creature. John heads home for the day.
Yeah, so chapter 3 is broken into these like 3 sections, and they all occur at a different location. And the clinic, I would say, is the shortest of the 3, which is fine because it's sort of getting, this could have been your first experience with the game, which would be wild.
Choices
but it could
would have been made.
choices would have been made. But I loved this. I loved the stealth section with the gurney because I love limiting players. I think that it's a really clever thing to do. I found it to be very spooky because hiding is scary, because what if I didn't hide right? I don't know how big these things are that I think I'm hiding behind. Are they really hiding me? Very, very effective, very spooky. Loved everything about this.
The playthrough that I watched, the player did this really funny thing where every time they got mortised, the mortis would get shorter and shorter out of frustration. For some reason, bless their hearts, they had the hardest time in this section trying to hide. Which I don't blame them, because I think that demon creature is pretty random in its movements. But God, it was just so funny every time they would get got, and then it was like, and then back 5 minutes ago, and it was like, all right, fast forward until they get mortised again. But based on I want to talk about the clinic, because based on the letters in chapter 1, I thought that this was actually supposed to be like an abortion clinic, like a Planned Parenthood or something with the name filed off. That might be a difference between Airdorf and his team, or maybe it was just Airdorf. I don't know how many people were on this team, but deciding that Faith should be a multi-title entity as opposed to just its standalone thing, because this is definitely not simply an abortion clinic. This also seems to be some sort of fertility clinic, and based off of the story with Gary, because Gary, the cult leader, who seems to be the real puppet master behind everything that happens in this
Gary loves you
trilogy. Gary loves us. I think it kind of makes sense that he would run a fertility clinic, especially when you start to find some of the ultrasound photos, which depicts, a couple different fetuses and then some sort of horrible demon fetus. Really effective, really cool stuff. Yeah. But I think it's kind of interesting to see that we went from something that was, I think, intended to be an abortion clinic become much more than that in the third game.
Right.
I mean, it could just be like a generic women's health clinics that would offer abortions as well as other gynecological
that's a very
services and fertility stuff.
Which makes it all the more nefarious to know that Gary is the one that's running it.
For sure.
Because I personally have been, whenever it comes to games like this, where I know the creator is a religious person, I get kind of nervous about how sensitive are they going to be to minorities and groups that are constantly being scrutinized, like pregnant women that are perhaps procuring and getting an abortion or doing something to do with their bodily health. I was kind of nervous about this, but Gary is such a malicious and nefarious presence who is classic cult leader stuff, very charismatic and kind of silly when you read his letters, but also fucking terrifying. I think personally it worked for me pretty well. I didn't feel like there was any sort of stigma that was being attached. Anything negative in this went back to Gary, the cult leader. And so I felt comfortable enough with, handling kind of a sensitive context like this. Maybe it's also just because it's 2025 and the most horrible things possible are happening right now. But yeah.
That's fair. ACAB. Let me just start there. But also RIP to that cop that we fought a demon with, because he gets immediately got by cultists.
Yeah. He runs off to chase some hippies that are burning his car, which they should be doing. And then we just find his little pixel blob,
crumpled body in an alley next over.
Yeah. Sorry for you.
Yeah.
You can, of course, return to the basement of the clinic to face the first of 3 optional bosses in this third chapter, which you will need to do if you would like the secret ending. They are all pretty tremendously difficult, so I don't think any of us did it, but maybe we watched somebody do it.
Yeah. Again, okay. I did not play this one at all, but I have watched people play it, and I know about what happens.
Great.
Being mobbed by dead like demon babies is a wild thing to happen in this game.
Oh yeah. The this and these are subversions of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So the clinic secret boss is the mother, the perversion of the father.
Also, like classic Satanic Panic kind of stuff. Like this was
Yeah.
the crap that was
Yeah.
being like spread all around. Like if you go to like a women's health clinic, like your demon's gonna be, your child will be turned into a demon. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The worst. Anyway, the next day, John has a letter from his friend Lisa, who has asked him for help. He travels to her apartment building and must complete a series of puzzles, more puzzles, to discover what is happening in her apartment building. It turns out the residents have become cultists at the urging of a man named Gary. Gary loves you. After undoing a magical seal preventing him from entering Lisa's room, John finds that she has been possessed by a demon named Alu. John fights and banishes Alu, and Lisa informs John that Gary is the leader of the cult and asks John to stop him. Lisa's kind of a badass. I love her. From all the gameplay videos I had watched, this seemed like as difficult of a boss fight as the Father Garcia fight at the end of Chapter 2, because you have to try and keep Lisa alive. And Lisa is trying to attack you. You're trying to attack Lisa because, oh my god, we totally kind of like crossed over this, but at some point John straight up gets like possessed and melts. And,
a little bit, yeah. Very gross.
Like, reconstitutes into some sort of horrible demon, and again, very A24 vibes. It's very, very effective. But like you end up having to kind of like fight yourself so that you don't kill Lisa, and then there is the demon itself, which is trying to kill you and possess Lisa. So it seems like thank God I didn't play it, because I probably would have quit. But David, as the only true gamer among the three of us, like, how was this experience with you? What did you think of this apartment?
It was difficult. I mean, I think, I got possessed a fair number of times during the battle. You can try to avoid it, but it is a very difficult attack to avoid. And so then you sort of have to mash the keys. I don't know if there was a better system of doing it, but I was just whamming on the damn thing. And so I'll submit my invoice for a new keyboard to the Glitterjaw accounts. But I was struggling because I want to kill my girl. And thank God I didn't, because after this you get a rotoscope cutscene of this girl smoking, and it's 80s hot. She's like Sarah Connor. Like, yes. She is a badass woman, and she is kind of like, yeah, no big deal. I just fought a demon, and she's like smoking a cigarette, and it's hot. It's just a really cool little sequence. It's very 80s film, and I loved that. I really loved
so
it.
Let's talk about Lisa a little bit, because again, I watched a lot of different videos about Faith, and a lot of people playing the game. I watch a lot of videos about like people theorizing about the game, and some people said that Lisa was John's twin sister, and they were the two kids from the orphanage that survived. And then I saw a lot of other people who were speculating that Lisa was his like former girlfriend, his friend. What is the relationship between John and Lisa, do we think?
I think they're childhood friends. I kind of forgot about the business that John was raised in an orphanage. But it was the orphanage that he visits in Chapter 2, right? Was that the
that is what several people were saying, and particularly Wendigoon in his video, he kept talking about the two of them were twins, and that's why, spoiler alert for like 15 minutes from now, but the twin brothers that John and Garcia are looking for this whole time aren't actually real. They were just kind of like a smoke screen by Gary to make sure John is like staying around and investigating and stuff. But like part of the reason why John was like so fixated on these twins was because he was a twin, and like that's like so I don't know.
I think that's a read, for sure. The nice thing is that there's not too much detail, so any of these possibilities are accurate. I personally think that maybe she was like childhood best friend or something. We do see in a cutscene that David has during a moment where like his world is falling apart, that flashback to he's with Lisa, and you could tell because of the color coordination. You got young John who's blue and young Lisa who's yellow. David, were you able to pick up on that at all?
No, and that's also from the prologue, which I did not play. I did not play the Chapter 2 prologue, which is why it's not in our notes.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it from the story synopsis, but I didn't play chapter 2 prologue.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as the only person who actually played all of this stuff, what did you think of Lisa's relationship with John and like those theories?
I mean, I don't mean to be a basic bitch and live my brand, but hot woman smoking, I assume they fucked. Like, I just was like, this is like a post-coital thing. Even if it wasn't actually coitus, it had the vibe of we just went through this thing together. We have a remarkable connection that exceeds the physical and is now spiritual. And the only way that I can get sort of a moment of satisfaction to remind me of that time is to take a long drag on a short cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what she does. And that has been told to me through a visual narrative for 45 years of my life, which I'm not yet. So it has told me that narrative for 42 years of my life. I have known that use of a cigarette in this context is to express that sort of satisfaction and revelation and catharsis. And that's how I interpreted that. Whether or not I actually, I don't think John broke his vow in that way, but I do think that there is a deep connection between them. And because I didn't do any of that deeper lore stuff, and didn't play the prologue, the chapter 2 prologue, which I think is where the orphanage stuff comes in and where the sort of background that people pull on for is from, which, Airdorf added specifically to create some of that. That all was sort of lost to me. It will not play on, I assumed that it would play on marathon mode, which puts all the chapters together, but because my second playthrough was marathon mode, it just skips the prologue altogether. The prologue is only available after you beat chapter 2, so I just had no opportunity to do it, and I was not going to do just more gaming of this game. This is a difficult game. I played enough of it.
You have, and you're so valid. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, David, I saw all of the Steam achievements and how long you were playing for. Couldn't be me.
Boom! Boom! And it's like, did you want to see what your friend Tyler has done? And I opened it, and it was like 0%.
Tyler has gotten murdered for the first time, his first tortoise. And then I think he found like a couple letters and got an achievement for that. Oh, yeah, he got in the house. That was it.
Mortis.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, sorry. There was one last thing I wanted to talk about in the apartment. Is that I didn't have a walkthrough, but the game had given me enough clues that I knew that I could do something in the elevator, and I wanted to do it. And so I followed little Timmy's instructions, and I played the elevator game to go to a parallel 10th floor where I had to confront Tiffany, who is Lisa's neighbor, who has turned herself into the vessel for Gary's, unborn child. This shit got so wild, and then I was confronted with the most difficult boss battle I faced in this game, which was this optional second part chapter 3 boss, but I conquered her ass. And I watched the little seal undo, and I was like, I'm not gonna undo the rest of this seal, sorry gang. But that was treacherous. That was
I heard that's the hardest
nonsense.
Boss.
She was hard.
Yeah.
She was hard.
Did you read Tiffany's Halloween party letter? The invite?
I got all the notes. I'm noteful. I had so much fun with everything. I loved Timmy. I loved don't scare Timmy. Don't wear a scary costume. He's still freaking out. But I love that Timmy had an elevator friend. I kept trying to see the elevator friend, and then I would see it and get scared even though I knew that it was coming. Again, so good. This reminded me of a game that I'm going to force you all to play. It was just called Uninvited. It was available for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it really was created like this elevator scene where it's a flat front and you just sort of have a forced perspective and things happen in front of you. Really, really, really loved the apartment.
Oh my god, I just looked up an image and it's so scary. Are you kidding me? Are you trying to make me play really scary things, David? The things that actually
we make him watch
me.
really scary movies, so it's only fair.
Yeah, but if I beat my computer with a baseball bat, then I'm out of computer.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say that the elevator game is another creepypasta. Yeah,
that's cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's its fun little own thing. It's about it's one of those Bloody Mary-esque game stories with a lot of very specific rules that if you do all of these things you could doom yourself to hell, which why would you do that? But for curiosity, I suppose.
Yeah, why would you say that word in front of anything that's reflecting, which includes a zoom screen? So calm down, Marilee.
I didn't say it 3 times. I'm good.
Just
once. I think you also have to spin in a circle.
Yeah, or do it at midnight. There are lots of rules to that game that I'm not going to say again.
The lights have to be off.
Yeah.
Girl, just come through the mirror. God, America in 2025, you're welcome. Bring it on. All right. So it's the final day. It's the final of these 3 segments. Here we are again, back in John's house. He's waking up all sexy again. And we've got another letter from Father Garcia asking John to investigate a nearby daycare center where children have been acting strangely, believing that it is somehow connected to Gary's cult. John finds the daycare surrounded by police, but he manages to sneak his way in. I loved this. I kind of knew that it was about to happen, but I was like, I wonder what would happen if I walked through the front door. And yep, exactly Sierra game. They all shoot you. It was exactly what I expected. Great
funny.
rotoscoping of John getting pelted by bullets too. Just absolutely incredible. The children in the daycare are all gone, but John finds drawings suggesting the influence of Gary's cult and a secret passage beneath the school. That leads to an extensive cult stronghold filled with cultists who have been transformed into demonic creatures, including some that will just reach out a giant hand and grab you and eat you. Mortis. As he explores the stronghold, John is ambushed by Gary and injected with a hallucinogenic substance before awakening even deeper in the complex. John eventually enters the heart of the stronghold and confronts Gary himself, who reveals that his true goal is to summon the Antichrist. They fight, and John is victorious, but Gary returns for a surprise attack. But John is saved by Father Garcia, who arrives with a shotgun and forces Gary to retreat. John and Father Garcia pursue him, finding the entrance to the source of the cult's power. The final confrontation unfolds, and John and Father Garcia leave the stronghold. John joins Father Garcia to fight the forces of darkness, and we get the credits for the game.
That is only one of the possible endings.
Be not afraid, mijo. Shh.
Yeah, I love it. Good. I loved it so much.
Father Garcia fucking rules.
Yeah, he really does. There are 2 basic endings that can be interpreted from what I got. Either one where John happily goes with Father Garcia, or one in which Father Garcia holds a gun to John and is like, "You're coming with me, Iho."
Yeah, because that's when you kill Lisa. He doesn't like you if you kill Lisa.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to be a priest anymore. But there's a guy with a shotgun, so you got to keep on preaching. Yes, if you do everything that I described as optional in this chapter, you do get an ending where John sort of feels content with his life and can make some other decisions. Or you can get right back in your car and not go into the daycare at all, and the cult wins, which is also a wild thing to program into the game.
Yeah, there's a secret ending where you can show up at all of the places and then just leave and not do anything, which I think is so funny. They certainly give you options in this game.
Yeah. This was great though. I had a great time here at the end. Challenging balance of puzzles and arcade encounters were really nicely done here. I don't feel like anything was too cheap or too ill-explained. I thought that this was a nice cap on the game. Really turned up the music to 100%. And I don't mean like volume. I just meant like we were really doing everything we needed to do thematically. And I had a really good time. This was a nice ending, and I really felt satisfied at the end of the game, even though I had not done all the optional things. And Garcia told me like, evil will return, and I was like, no big, we got it, buddy. Mm-hmm. And then we high-fived.
And like
did you high-five, or did you like clasp hands in a manly 80s fashion?
I think we did clasp in a manly 80s. It might have even been a handshake.
It's clasp hands and then do a like one hearty shake.
Yeah. It's again that classic Schwarzenegger meme where like the 2 manly hands have come together.
Yeah. It I don't know. It was kind of like, have you explored my body? I don't know. There was a vibe between them. I understand why there's fanfic about them out there in the world.
Me too.
Yeah.
I thought a great ending. I think Gary, like seeing Gary, great. I think one of the scariest things that happened in all 3 of these games is when you enter a final zone and then Gary just rushes you in pixel form with the needle, and then it switches over to the rotoscoped. And then John gets injected, and then John goes from his blue normal self to sudden, like, sharp red, like, big white eyes, horribly, like, gangly mouth, like he's being electrocuted by evil. That looks so good. And then when you talk to Gary afterwards, and you're only allowed to ask 3 questions, and you can't get all of your questions answered, is also really great. And as Gary answers the question, he becomes more and more demonic. And he's wearing sunglasses the whole time. Like an
absolute douchebag. It's great.
Like a David Koresh kind of vibe, or what was the name of the Kool-Aid guy? Whatever. Just classic cult leader vibes, but he's actually able to back up his bullshit. And that is scary as fuck. And I think also a cult leader who is super evil and is actually really, really evil and not just super misguided or silly or charismatic or whatever. That's not at all relevant in 2025, but nevertheless. Yeah, no, I just found this to be a really satisfying ending to the game. And it's good shit. I highly recommend people at least watch it, because this is one of the games where I think if you watched it, you will have just as much value from it as if you played it, because the story and the way gameplay merges with story is so well done. It feels like you're watching an A24 movie. It's great.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, let's revisit some of the questions that brought us here together. Now, at the other end of our conversation, do you all still feel like this was a horror entry for us to consider? And I think we're all going to say yes to this, because I think it only got more horrifying as you continued on going through the game. It was pretty much always spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Spooky.
Spooky, scary, absolutely.
Spooky, scary demon tons.
But did we find any other ways to think about this as a queer entry for us to consider as far as queer theory goes?
I think I like the idea that Father Garcia and Father John have gotten together and they're gay demon hunters now.
With a big shotgun.
With a big shotgun.
You've got to watch the Exorcist TV show.
I know, I really do. But that's a story for another time.
Yeah, I mean, I liked all the conversation we had around the clinic. I think that there is more ore to mine there, especially between the chapter 1 version of the clinic and the chapter 3 version of the clinic. It is very interesting to know what that could have been, or maybe what it was intended to be, or what we had to settle for to make the gameplay elements work and the Gary of it all. But I think that there are these these almost available to us moments throughout the game that it was just like watching a really solid home run pitch go right across the base, and be a strike. And that I think is the bummer, is just watching this foul out so much, and just that it could have been something really queer and really great and could have had a lot of representation and just didn't. And so I don't know if Airdorf needed a sensitivity reader or just needed more people who are queer in his life. But that's, but you made a game, so really a game that we all liked and played, and I might even go back for to get more achievements when I burst out the PC. But I you know what, this was a great time. I had fun playing it, even though I would have loved to see a little bit more specific queer representation or queer lived experience on the page,
or even more queer themes in general.
Yeah. All of that is true, but it's fine. I'm gonna fix it, guys. Amy is a lesbian. I'm claiming her. That's the game. Is gay now.
Okay.
Hey, she smoked a cigarette and that was hot.
No,
so,
that's Lisa. Amy's the teen girl who gets possessed.
All right, well, she can get a cigarette. It's the 80s. Do what you need to do, Amy.
I mean, we have not even really talked too much about Amy and the whole deal with girls getting possessed, but I mean, it's just day 1 of Excommunic-April, or
there's
actually I have to recheck, but the schedule. But basically, we've got so much time for poor girls getting possessed by Satan. We will be mining that well quite a bit, and talking about why we're mining that well.
Yeah,
we don't mine a well though.
I think teenage girls getting possessed is a pretty queer thing for a teenage girl to do, especially one who is working at a potentially abortion clinic as in the 80s when her religious parents won't like it. I think that's right. I claim her. She's ours. She's queer.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, any other final thoughts for this episode? Was there anything else that you wanted to point out, or any other conversations to have?
No, I mean, I thanks for the recommendation, Tyler. I'm really glad that you checked this out and added it to our list. I think it was a great way to kick off Excommunic-April. I think that it does Catholic so well in a video game without being, I think, offensive to the idea of Catholicism, the idea of Christian belief. And I think a lot of that does come from Airdorf's personal beliefs. He was a missionary in Argentina. He brought a lot of that into the work. Some of that's even represented in some of the notes that you can find in chapter 1. I just think This is a great game experience. I think it's a great kickoff to the month. I hope that everything we cover will be just as respectful to Catholicism as this game was.
Certainly.
And I know that it will be.
Well, that's our priority here, is being respectful to Catholicism of Fear Code.
Listen,
Yeah,
these girls did not press those red hats to hear your slander, Tyler. Conclave.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you need to hold aloft a symbol of hope to drive away a skittering demonic fiend, you can share your faith in all of us at Instagram and Blue Sky at FearCodedPod.
This podcast is a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you'd like to listen to even more queer media podcasts, you can check out the full roster of shows at glitterjaw.com. And join us next week as we have another demon in a habit and even more defenestration as Excommunic-April continues and we cover the 2018 film The Nun. But for now, we will simply say goodbye.
Bye.